Uh, Ladies and gentlemen, good evening everyone. As some of you may know, I work for Copa-Cogeca. They have a small interpreting and translation department there. Copa-Cogeca is an agricultural lobby. Copa represents farmers. It's an acronym which stands for Committee of Professional Agricultural Organizations. And Cogeca is an organization which represents agricultural cooperatives, and its acronym stands for General Committee for Agricultural Cooperatives in the EU. So, according to what my colleagues at Copa-Cogeca tell me, we represent some 23 million farmers and their families, and 22,000 agricultural cooperatives. So I've been working at Copa-Cogeca for about 3 years now, and one of the issues that has taken up a lot of our time, that we focus a lot on, is the Russian embargo on European food products. So this has been in place since 2014. So I'm going to walk you through the background to the Russian embargo, first of all. I'm going to tell you what it is. Then, after that, I'm going to give you my theory about why Russia imposed this ban. And then the third thing I'm going to do is to tell you about why this ban is hitting the agricultural sector in Europe so hard. And then I'll draw a few conclusions if I have time. So, what is this embargo, first of all? So the background. So the EU imposed sanctions on the Russian Federation back in 2014. That was done in response to Russia's illegal annexation of the Crimea, which of course used to belong to Ukraine. So Russia had thereby deliberately attempted to undermine a sovereign state. So the EU had to react. On the 17th of March 2014, the EU imposed travel bans and asset freezes on some 149 Russian individuals who were responsible for the action taken against Ukraine's territorial integrity. Then, in July 2014, the EU ramped up the sanctions even further. It goes without saying, though, that Russia wasn't going to take this lying down. This is a country that still sees itself as a superpower. So, when Russia saw that the EU had imposed sanctions on it, it decided to react. And Russia's revenge was to end all imports of food from the EU. Now, just a bit of an aside here. When I first heard about the ban, I thought, well, this is really annoying because I'm on summer holiday and I know they're going to call me back to work to interpret some emergency meeting about agricultural produce and so on. That didn't happen, but I still was thinking a lot about the ban when it was first put in place. And I thought to myself, this is really weird. Surely this is going to backfire on Russia, because if they were importing that food, they must have been importing it for a reason, because they needed it, because Russian farmers couldn't produce the food that Russia's citizens wanted. So as we say in English, I wondered whether Russia was cutting off its own nose to spite its face. But there is some method behind what I thought was the Russian madness. So I think the reason the Kremlin decided to impose this embargo on food products was because the Russian government knows that the EU agricultural sector is highly organized. In each country you have farming associations, and then, as I've said, they're represented by Copa-Cogeca, the umbrella group. So I think the Russian authorities thought, European farmers are going to do what they always do. They're going to kick up a fuss, they're going to protest. So that means that because there'll be such an outcry because of the farmers' reaction, the EU in turn will lift the ban on us. So we'll lift these asset freezes and end these travel bans. I also think Russia decided to do this and to focus on the agricultural sector because it's a traditional military or tactical ploy. Russia wanted to divide and conquer. Russia wanted one of the European countries to break and to start negotiating individually with Russia through bilateral talks. So France negotiating individually with Russia, or Germany negotiating individually with Russia, rather than the EU negotiating as a bloc. Now, why is this crisis such a serious one? Why is it really taking its toll on the European agricultural sector? First, it comes at a really bad time because Europe is also facing the migrant crisis. This means that there's very little extra money available in order to help the agricultural sector. The second factor that's exacerbated the severity of this crisis is the end of the milk quotas. Now, I'll just briefly tell you what the milk quotas were. So, in the past, farmers were incentivized to produce as much as they could under the first iteration of the Common Agricultural Policy. This led to overproduction, so too much milk, too many cereals. So when too much of something is produced, the price falls. So farmers weren't getting enough money for the milk they produced. The Commission decided to establish a quota system. This means that each country was given a quota. So each country could only, and its farmers, could only produce a certain amount of milk. If you produced more than that, then you had to pay a fine. This fine was called the super levy. So 2014, 2015, we have the Russian embargo and we have the end of the quota system. So these two forces working together have created a perfect storm on the dairy market. Now, I've already spoken for 7 minutes, so I'll just draw some very brief conclusions, and I'll ask the question, will this Russian embargo end soon? My personal view is that it won't end anytime soon, but I do have a suggestion which the policy wonks at DG Agri don't seem to have considered. I think DG Agri and the Commission as a whole could try to kill two birds with one stone. What the EU could do is carry out a large-scale purchasing program, buying up this excess food that is produced by EU farmers, but which can no longer be sold to Russia. This food could be distributed to the refugees who are arriving in Europe every day, and could also go to help those in war-torn Syria and Libya. Thank you very much for listening.